All right, so I think we are officially live. So, hey everyone. So today we're talking to my good and longtime friend, Jonathan Roby. Jonathan and I are going to talk through a few different topics. Jonathan is in the real estate and mortgage industry, and we also have some personal things that him and I have connected on in the last 6 months that we thought would be fun to talk about. So, I guess diving in, Jonathan, I'd like for you to just tell everybody a little bit more about you and what you do, and then we'll start there.
Yeah, so I started in the mortgage business in 2016, which was a great time to start in mortgages. And as I, you know, progressed in my career, I realized, I'm helping these agents with structuring their deals and negotiating, and how hard can it really be to become an agent? So I got my license a couple years ago, and since then I've been a hybrid agent, a dual agent, which has been a blessing. Absolutely love real estate. I sleep, eat, and breathe it. I got a family that keeps me busy, and yeah, it's been awesome. It's been really great in the prime time of my years in real estate and raising a family. So I'm loving it.
I love it, man. Yeah, and you growing family and you guys. So Jonathan and I actually met in Chicago when we both lived there, and then now you guys are down in Florida. So we don't have to go into exactly what we're. Well, I guess we could bouncing
Sure.
at bars in Chicago, but
Yeah.
that's where our friendship started. So
A lot of friendships start in Chicago, I feel, and then it was the best times for sure. It made me appreciate my youth for sure, but Chicago got me ready to build my business elsewhere. I like to say, I mean, I got that city vibe in a much more relaxed area here in Florida, so it does have its advantages. But yeah, I mean, starting a business in a completely different state in a COVID shutdown was probably the craziest thing I did. I mean, as soon as the shutdown was announced, and starting a business from zero in a new state was probably the craziest thing I did for sure. I mean, and especially in real estate, your job is, about kissing babies and shaking hands, and you couldn't do either.
right.
That
What
was,
was what were some of the things that you did? Obviously, real estate is fluctuated a lot as of recent, even in
Mhm.
the last couple of years post COVID and things like that. But like, what were some of the things that you did, I guess, to really get your business up and going, and then some of the things that you've really consistently done to continue to grow because you're crushing it.
Yeah, well, I would say a lot of it was, adapting. I went from in-person meetings to virtual, and a lot of that has carried on to this day. A lot of cold calling, but virtual meetings for sure were a big thing. Virtual open houses were another big thing, but just enhancing the service throughout the entire process to stand out as well, because everybody else was starving, in that time. So they were coming up with, ideas themselves, but to really connect with somebody, it was all about setting the meetings, whether it was virtual or in person, but just making your face out there. Networking events were not a thing at that time either, so it was the virtual happy hour. I remember that was a thing. But
That
yeah,
was
I
a
mean,
big thing.
things are done now. But yeah, I would say the virtual meetings though have stayed consistent, though I think a lot of people have. I mean, I actually remember suits were a thing that people wore, prior to 2020, and now like it's not a thing anymore. Like mortgage bankers wore suits all the time, and now it's like I feel like it's definitely optional
Yeah,
in comparison to what it used to be. But yeah, man, a
yeah.
lot of things change.
It's much more, I would say it's more relaxed from a certain standpoint. The one thing that I've really seen, like I was very similar. The business that I was starting was a networking platform for real estate agents and businesses they work with. And part of our platform was throwing quarterly events where we were putting 300 people together. And yeah, COVID literally started right before my second big event, right? So there was that shift. And
Yeah,
I think the one thing I've really seen a lot too is Zoom is great because it is efficient. Like I think people are way more apt to get on a Zoom call now. And so
yeah,
it does give you the opportunity to expand depending on what business you're in,
yeah,
into different areas. But people really, I think, want that in person back back. And so I see that shift happening a lot too, even in the last year or two.
It's like writing a handwritten note now is the new cool thing because no one's doing it.
Right.
So it's
Right.
come full circle. So I have incorporated now, more in person meetings for that reason because it does stand out more than scheduling, and it carries more weight for sure. It does, it really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
But
Big
yeah, I
time.
mean, I would say the biggest thing now has the conversation now is rates, of course, and inventory and all of those things. I mean, the market is what you make it. So when people say, "Oh, it's a slow market right now," I really think that it's the market you make it. People are
Yeah.
people are crushing my numbers, let alone people are busy in real estate, and it's always going to be busy.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a lot of it is mindset, and we can kind of we'll shift into some of the fun stuff that you and I wanted to talk about, but
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is mindset, and one of the things I really had to check myself on, I think anytime you're growing a business or anytime that you're trying to get out there in front of more people and things like that, it's very easy nowadays to just say, I'm going to use this AI tool or I'm going to use whatever software. And my recommendation a lot of times is like, yeah, we should automate, but once you've actually figured out what's going to work and what the process really needs to be. And I think it really just comes down to like working hard, right? And a lot of times those things that you sow now, they do become a harvest in the future. And a lot of times you're not going to see that jump in business maybe in the first 60 days or 90 days, but all of those things that you are consistently doing over time is going to pay off, in year 1, 2, 3, that sort of thing. So
yeah. Shortcuts can
um
only get you so far.
yeah, there is no shortcut. There's ways to enhance, I think, what you're doing, but yeah, there's no shortcuts to success. You gotta take your
You
lumps
still got to
along the way.
proofread whatever ChatGPT throws at you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You can only trust it so far. But
Yeah.
so one of the things that Jonathan and I, God, I don't even know how long ago was that? Like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when you did this.
Oh, yeah, about 3 months ago.
I was excited to have Jonathan be able to talk a little bit about some of the things that were going on with him personally and some of the things that he's accomplished and that he's doing now, and how it also just enhanced not only his personal life, but then also like how it's continued to help in his professional life. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to let you kind of tell a little bit of the
Yeah,
backstory and then how we got into it and
sure.
and how we kind of reconnected again.
Yeah, for sure. So it was a few months back, and went to the doctor, and he said, you're not going to make it to 40 the way you're going. And that was a wake up call because I don't feel like doctors say that lightly. And it was a combination of prediabetes, fatty liver disease. I mean, a whole bunch of things that, would, put an expiration date on me. And so I did something pretty drastic. I looked into fasting. And of course, everyone do your own due diligence, but this was my experience. I'll share. But I went
Yeah,
without eating.
disclaimer, right?
That
Like do
disclaimer.
your own do your own do your own research,
Do
but
your own research. But I did a 40-day water only fast and only had electrolytes, magnesium, calcium, and potassium, and sodium. Excuse me. And I didn't have anything besides water and electrolytes. No calories, nothing. No bone broth, nothing for 40 straight days. And what that did was a combination of health benefits that allowed me to shave 80 pounds off my body. And I was able to fit in suits again that I haven't worn since COVID.
yeah.
And, it completely reshaped my brain. The dopamine receptors were reset. And, I was able to actually, in those 40 days, perform at a higher level. I don't know how that happened, but there was a lot of good benefits that made me focus on things that I needed to be focused on rather than worrying about where my next meal was going to be and all of that. But I actually cured myself. I went back to the doctor. I don't have fatty liver disease. I got rid of my prediabetes, high cholesterol down, best blood pressure I've ever had. The list goes on, but I mean, I didn't have to go on a pill, which was a big thing for me. And, and yeah, so now the question is, have I kept the weight off? So I have gained back some of the weight because, a lot of water weight has returned, but um, I have a whole new look. I'm training for a marathon now, which is exciting, but I guess it opened up a lot of doors and changed my thinking in a lot of ways. But even just knowing that I was able to do something so challenging made, the everyday business, tasks seem easy. It
Yeah.
was a game changer for me for sure. Honestly, craziest thing I ever did. I mean, my wife thought I was nuts. I started with 10 days and I said, let's do another 30 because it's like really the Mount Everest of fasting. When you do your research on it, you'll see that really the benefits start at, day 7, day 10, and then your body does this whole crazy rejuvenation between day 10 and 30. Or then day 10 and 40. Yeah. And
Yeah,
you
man.
reached out because you were like, hey, how the heck did you do such a crazy thing? And that's how we reconnected. So that was cool.
Yeah. And Jonathan and I've somewhat stayed in contact, here and there. Fasting was something that I had done not 40 days
Yeah.
at all. I think the longest that I've gone is close to 7. I think I got to 6. I think is when I did 6 or 7, something like that.
Uh-huh.
At the yeah, oh, I didn't even mean to do that. I don't even know what that means anymore. We should clip that. Send that to my nephews and tell them, look how cool I am, right?
You did say
Um,
it naturally.
I didn't even mean to do it. But no, I think really from a standpoint, I reached out because I've done more intermittent, 3-day fast, things of that nature, where it's just water, electrolytes, maybe bone broth, things of that nature. But I know how hard that was. And so as I was kind of watching your journey of getting like day after day, I reached out because I was like, man, this is one, it's incredible. And I just wanted to congratulate you
Thanks.
because I know that that was something that was not easy.
No.
And then also just kind of what your driver was. Like, I'm somebody that's always asking, why does somebody not eat for 40 days? Like what
Yeah.
was your driver for that? And then hearing your story behind that. But I think not only my perspective on it is like, not only did you do that for the 40 days, but it wasn't like, hey, I just want to try this out and then kind of go back to my old ways. And the last conversation you and I had was really about like you said, is just that mindset moving forward. When you do hard things, the things that used to be hard aren't as hard anymore, right? And so I think that's been just an awesome arc for you of just going from A to B, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I got to B, like now I can go to Z if I want to.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you say that because the biggest thing, the hardest part was not eating for 40 days, but something close to that was posting every day. I mean, even when my job depends on marketing myself and like relying on social media, like to get up every day and say, I didn't record my video, or, I mean, I have to, throw something up. But like, not only did I not eat for 40 days, but I also posted every day of those 40 days, whether
You
it
did.
was under a minute. But you can really see the transformation just in my face. But it was also like a test for me if I can post. So even after I finished that 40 days, I've been healthier since, but I haven't posted as frequently, which is something that, even talking about it now makes me want to go back to that concept of just throwing something up a day.
It's funny because one of the biggest focuses that I've had in the last 60 days is, you look at the people that are the most successful, right? And like at the core of what they've done is they've been very consistent at least a handful of things for a long period of time, right?
Hmm.
Like they've taken their lumps, they've done hard things, but like at the core of it, it's like it's the consistency. And so I think a lot of times too is we try and get really consistent on like 15 different things all at one time, and it's just that's not how it works. And so one of the things that I've been really focused on is trying to be consistent at one thing for a certain period of time, whether it's 15 days, 30 days, until it becomes something that's just a part of my daily routine. And then I figure out like, can I become more efficient at that, or can I outsource that, or can I automate that, whatever that is. But I think a lot of times we try and pack so many things consistently because we get that spur of like energy or like motivation. And then eventually, when it doesn't become an actual habit and we haven't built that muscle in, it's easy for those things to just fall off.
Hmm.
And I think that's a real thing in anything, because life happens, life comes up, kids, like
Yeah.
people get sick, you get
Motivation
sick.
versus discipline. Yeah. Motivation will only get you so far. The discipline keeps you going. Yeah, man, for sure. I will say that the accountability of, Accountability partners help. I think Facebook as a platform, people were expecting a post every day, so that was also another driver for me to like make sure I posted. But when you don't have an accountability system, I think that's also another way to fall through. So what's the accountability system for whatever you're trying to stay consistent with is important too, because motivation can only get you so far.
Yeah. Yeah. And motivation's it is gonna come and go, and so it's just, and that's kind of, I actually wrote about it in one of the newsletters, was like, how do you create that habit, muscle? Because ultimately it's very easy. I've talked about it just in my health in general since college, playing
Yeah.
sports and being around a bunch of people all the time, being able to have people that were always working out and eating good and those sort of things. And then you're done with that, and it's become very cyclical. And so one of the things is like, how do I stay more consistent? Like, is it 7 days a week? Probably isn't going to work. Like, I'm not in college where I have 5 hours a day to just do whatever, right? Like, that's just not how
Sure.
it works.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah. So it's just, I think a lot of times is like, I hear a lot of people online, say like, oh, I get up at this time every single day. And I'm like, well, no, that's, unless you just don't have a life or anybody else in your world. So it's like, how do you do that for a prolonged period of time? And maybe not every single day, but how do you do things weekly or monthly or things like that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I'm still looking for that answer. I am still looking for that answer.
I
Because there
think,
are days where I'll go 4 a.m. and I'll run 5 miles. And then there are days, like especially in the last couple of weeks, where I'm just like, I'm going to sleep in tonight.
well, I think,
I'm going to sleep in. And I think
I,
that's
I
normal.
think sometimes though, too, like, having to give yourself a little grace in knowing that like you're not a robot. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes there is those periods of time where you don't get up at 4, but you get up at 5, right? Like, or whatever those things
Yeah.
are.
When waking up at 5 feels like sleeping in.
Yeah, you've created, and if you look at from where you were before to where you are now, like,
Yeah.
yeah, waking up at 5 is still like way better than it was before, right?
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes giving yourself grace in not being perfect and not, is also that part. Because that would happen to me, is like, I'd be consistent for 60 days, right? And then I'd have something happen, or I wouldn't get to the gym, or whatever it was, or just in business, right? In business stuff. And then you wind up beating yourself up, and now you're down a rabbit hole, instead of just saying like, hey, I'm human and stuff happens, like, I'll get back at it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's a
But I
new
don't
day.
think there's one easy fix for it.
Just got to reset, move on, count your
Big
loss.
time. Big
Yep.
time. I'd love to ask some specifics in regards to like your business and some of the things that you
Yeah.
have really done, that you've seen have made you more successful over time, right?
Yeah.
And I know you have the real estate side, the mortgage side. So I guess in regards to those two industries, like, what are some of the things that you're consistently doing that you have seen like, hey, this is maybe didn't pay off in the first 60 days, but because I was doing this, like, here's where I'm at now.
So I learn best by teaching. And so I find myself in positions where I will make an effort to help others accomplish what they're trying to do. And by doing that, I learn so much more and it helps me grow. So, for example, cold calling is one of my things that I enjoy the most, which sounds in itself crazy. But I do enjoy cold calling and I enjoy the sale, the hunt, the whole 9 yards. And I found that many people hate cold calling. And in our industry, that's like essential. It's like, I mean, some would argue otherwise, but I would say that cold calling is a dying art. And, a lot of people are not, up for the challenge of cold calling. And so when I can show people that it's really not as scary as many people think it is, it helps me make the calls that I need to make. It helps me learn how to navigate challenging situations, but also I love seeing the success in others when they're making the calls that they wouldn't have made otherwise. So at my brokerage, I call it the cold call corner, and I get a group of agents that want to learn how to make cold calls. And I'm not saying my way is the best way, but it does start the conversation on what, ways we could make calls better and how do you get to the meeting. And so I would say that was, a big thing that I've started to focus on
Very
is
cool.
helping others.
I love that, man. It's funny when you say cold calling. I worked at a company long time. I think it was like after college, before I went to Chicago. And there was a senior guy there, super successful, like incredibly successful. And I remember being nervous about making cold calls. Like I was nervous, and he looked at me, and I won't use his exact words because but
Sounds like a
ultimately
boiler room conversation.
he yeah, it was. But the core of what he said to me is he looked at me and he said, Drew, you're not that blank important. And I didn't know how to take that at first because I'm like, wait a second, like I'm not important. You know what I mean? Like he just said it so direct to me, like you're not that important. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, how many times have you gotten a phone call from somebody that wanted to set a meeting with you or sell you something or whatever it was? He's like, what do you do after that phone call? And I said, I don't know. I hang up the phone or I set the meeting. Like I don't want it or I set the meeting. Like that's it. And he said, oh, you don't run to your friends and tell them like, oh my God, I just got a call from this guy and I can't believe he cold called me. And like, then he went and told his parents and like, he's like, what are you actually, he's like, you're not that important. If you were that important, that's what would happen after that phone call. Like they would go tell everybody, they'd post on social media that you called them, but you're not that important. And ever since that moment, I think I was 23 at the time, 24 maybe. Ever since that moment, I kind of realized that like, hey, I'm not that important, and like I'm just calling to have a conversation with somebody, right? And that's always stuck with me. I mean, even till this day, that was what 15 years ago,
Yeah,
and so it was just a mindset shift for me, realizing like if I'm actually feel like I can provide value to somebody, why am I not trying to call them? You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
And so I
100%.
think a lot of cold calling is mindset, but I'd love to hear your mindset on it as
Yeah,
well.
that's pretty. I mean, you're not far off. I mean, that's exactly right. I'm calling with a solution. I'm calling to help people, and so if they don't want my help, then we're not a good fit, and I move on. And I think the biggest thing is too is that people are not sure of why they're calling or what they're calling for, and that holds them back from making the call or their call rejection. And so for me, I'm calling to. I'm not expecting to sell the person on whatever I'm selling them on that initial phone call. And I think that's the biggest, I would say, fallacy is with these cold calls is that people think I need to convince somebody that they need to sell their house on the phone on the first call. And you're not going to do that. So like my
Right.
my call is to set up a meeting to talk about their goals. And if you could use that concept for anything you're selling, I think any product. If you're calling to set the meeting to discuss what you're selling, you're going to have a higher appointment rate, you're going to have higher closing, you're going to have higher qualified buyers. And the way I do it too is I ask for the meeting up front in the phone call and then rapport build on the back end. So I'll introduce myself, I'll go straight into, hey, the reason for the call, I'm calling to schedule a time with you to discuss selling your house. No, I don't have time for this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. When would be a better time? And so now I'm wrestling about when to meet, not why you should sell. And, and if I can nail them on the time and day or a follow up call, then that's when I'll go into the rapport building.
Awesome.
What, to better prepare for our meeting, what are you looking to do with the sale of your home? Why hasn't it sold? And now they blah, 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 talk. When if you had asked them in the beginning, you could have had all that talking, but then they wouldn't want to meet you.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
secure
and
the
I
meeting
think
and then I rapport build.
and I think today too I would say in the world we live in, people are bombarded by everything. And so I think a lot of times the approach is different. Like you're calling somebody, it's more of a, hey, this is what I got going on. There's a little less more of like, hey, I'm calling to set a meeting, right? But I think that it still works, and it's a numbers game, and everything's a numbers game. And
100%.
sometimes like one of the things we used to do to make it fun, and I haven't done a lot of cold calling in the last, however many years, but one of the things we used to do is like we would actually write out the responses and like post them on a wall. So like when somebody would kind of like go off on you for calling them, right? Or you get those situations, we would actually write them out and then we would post them on a wall and see whose was like the funniest for that day. And you realize it takes the emotion out of it and the
Uh-huh.
attachment. because it's just like that person could have just been having a bad day or caught them at a bad time or whatever. And so there's a lot of those things that we used to do as well.
Yeah, and then you realize very quickly that there's only like 4 or 5 real common objections, and you almost can bet on what they're going to throw at you. As you do so many, you're like, oh, okay, he's doing the I got to talk to my wife about it. He's doing the I'm too busy, or I'm, whatever the objection is. There's only such a handful of them ultimately that get replayed over and over again. So once you nail those, you're fine. But yeah, making it a game, what's gamifying it is super, and that's why I do the cold call corner, because it gets people, it gets people talking about challenges. And a lot of these cold call coaches, I'd like to call them, they say how to make the calls. They'll say, all you got to do is say this, or when they say this, all you got to do is say that. Okay, well then you make the call. I'd love to see
Right.
you make the call. Let's see it. So I like to say it's better to show me than tell me. So, whatever I explain or preach, I do in front of everybody, and, all eyes on me kind of deal. And I'll make the call, and sure, I'll have the hits and misses, but it gets everybody comfortable to make those calls when you yourself are making them. It's not just
Yeah. I think what you just hit on too is such a point in leadership. And like we'll wrap up here in just a few minutes, but
yeah,
I think that's a massive point from a leadership standpoint, right? Like a lot of times it's very easy to, like you just said, like, hey, well just say this, right? Or just say this. And ultimately at the end of the day, especially in cold calling and things like that, my terminology or the specific things that I'm saying like may not sound natural, right? And so a lot of times like you're able to show them like, hey, it's okay to mess up. It's okay to not be 100% all the time on this. But a lot of times I think that's such a leadership thing that is really forgotten, and is like you have to be the one that does pave the way, that shows like, hey, you're not going to be 100% on this. It's okay to mess up, but like through repetition you're going to get better, right?
100%.
And I think that's in everything. That's
Yeah,
not just life,
lead from the
life
front.
in general. Yeah, exactly. But being in a position to where you're comfortable enough to know like I'm not going to be perfect even though I have way more experience than you, I think that allows people under you to understand like I don't have to be perfect, or I don't have to, like I just need to
Well, and I
to do
think
the
that's why a
work.
lot of the coaches don't go on and do those calls, because then it would compromise their top spot,
Right.
because if they do mess up, they're not going to seem like they know what they're doing, because they're putting themselves in a compromising, vulnerable position if they're putting themselves in a position to get slapped around by somebody on the phone in front of
Right.
everybody.
But and in my opinion, like that's more realistic than not, right?
Yeah,
Because like you
100%.
make enough phone calls, you're going to come across somebody that like gives
Yeah.
you the business. Like
Uh-huh.
that's just what it comes down to. So
I gotta say, man, I really love this platform. I think you're doing awesome with getting everybody on this, and it's got a lot of value. And I'm sure a lot of people will learn from all the interviewees that you're bringing on. So congrats on this, and it's an awesome thing. I think this is something that I wish I could do. Oh my gosh, man, you're killing it. So good for you, man.
I appreciate that, man. I realized very quickly I went back and forth between like, should we do like an official podcast or should we like do certain videos? And my thought is I was trying to take my own advice, which was how do I get from point A to B as quick as possible and deliver value? And over time, hopefully this does evolve and become something that is a little bit bigger, maybe a little more formal, that sort of thing. But I think there's a lot of really edited and cut videos and things like that. And I think I appreciate people just having real conversations about topics that are of interest to me. And so yeah,
Awesome,
so we're just going to keep talking and talking about business and life, and people that are on their entrepreneurial journey and their professional journeys, and hopefully at some point we start to make more and more of an impact, and
awesome.
that's really the goal. So
Well, this was
um,
impactful.
I love it.
I
I
got hit
love it.
hard. Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
For sure, man. Awesome. Well, we'll wrap up here. But Jonathan, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's really cool to be able to do this with you specifically, from bouncing and bar backing and bars in Chicago to however many years later, having this conversation. And I don't know if I'd be lying if I said I knew that back then we'd be having
For
this
sure.
conversation.
That's
But
funny,
it's,
right?
yeah, but it is awesome. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you, man. And we'll jump off here, and
Sounds good.
we'll
I'll
see
catch you on the other
everybody
side.
soon.
All right, bye.